Wonderful. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Lounge. So I'm here with my leadership coaching friends and colleagues, Tasneem and Sophia. And this week we are talking about delegation, because I know that that is a really hot topic, particularly for new leaders when they start to manage people, and it can be difficult. So last week we talked about micromanagement. So we thought this week would be really interesting to talk about delegation and what does responsible delegation look like versus irresponsible delegation. So really, like the first question is, how do you delegate? How do you delegate well? And, you know, ideally, you wouldn't just have one person and just pop it all onto the one person. So proper delegation is thoughtful delegation, really. So it's very much about communicating with the person that you're delegating this to in quite a detailed and thoughtful way. So what do they need to hear to feel motivated and empowered and responsible for this? Not just task-wise, but the entire project, the entire outcome. So, you know, it's very important, the conversation that you have with the person. It's very much why this, why them, how does this fit into the overall strategy of the company? What does success look like? What is the expectation at the end of this? That needs to be absolutely abundantly clear, and it's their responsibility to get this project there as much as possible. Helping them with the required resources. Maybe if you were the go-to person on this topic, maybe now you need to introduce them to new people, new ideas to help them on their way, rather than keeping it to yourself still. You need to share that. Any sort of deadlines, never give fake deadlines. I used to hate that, saying, oh, just give it to me on Monday when it's not due by Friday, just because you want to still have that extra bit of control. That's people can tell. Absolutely, people can tell. And then, you know, support them along the way, and then communicate the successes and celebrate when things go right, learn when things go wrong, but be there for that person and make sure the company knows that this is now the person responsible for this. So the company knows, you know, this is the person that we need to thank for doing such a great job. So what do you think, Tasneem? What does good delegation look like?
Good delegation for me, I think it's there's a fine line between asking for help, delegate, and delegating responsibly versus delegating badly. And the way I usually see the difference is that if there's something which is directly your responsibility to get it over the line, and if you need somebody to support you or take over the whole thing, knowing that it is you who should be doing it, then for me, that's asking for help. That's not delegation. Delegation comes in when you have a team, whether they report to you or not, who are responsible for making your vision, your job happen in the best possible way. And when you differentiate the two, then delegation starts happening. So, you know how if there's a hierarchy, usually there's a team lead, and then everyone supports them in executing the main objectives that that person's supposed to achieve. So it always trickles down. So if you're the manager and you have a team supporting you, then what are the things that each person can be responsible for? So everyone's contributing to the bigger goal of what the team is supposed to achieve. And in that process, what can you help people to feel empowered and execute their duties so that they can support you in achieving what the team is supposed to achieve? And that's where the delegation bit comes in. Is it your responsibility, like yourself, to do something? Or is it something that you need to achieve as a team? And then who can you, delegate it to, make responsible? And in that process, empower them to grow as an individual as well. And I think that with delegation comes a lot of trust as well. So I think that for me, that's what I would call probably delegating responsibly, and knowing where the line is and how to delegate. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, what you say about, the difference between asking for help and actually delegating a responsibility. It's okay to ask for help, but make sure that there's definitely a difference there. I think it's also so important that we delegate to someone who can actually handle the task. and the responsibility. So it's your responsibility as a leader to make sure that your team member is equipped. And do they have the resources in terms of competence, tool, manpower, the time that they need? If they don't, then don't go and criticize them later when they haven't achieved. And I think we see this way too often, that we expect somebody to do magic. A lot of companies today are low on resources, but then we need to help out. So you cannot just delegate to somebody and not be supportive and not be accessible, not acknowledging that there is definitely a lack of resource. I mean, we all need to do our best. But having said that, just because you delegate to somebody doesn't mean that they need to be able to do it perfectly. Maybe your delegation is a way of empowering people. It's a way of letting them grow into the task. So you delegate to somebody because you see that they have a potential of eventually doing it perfectly. So you don't have to delegate only to the people who will do it perfectly, but to delegate to somebody who has the potential, and then be there for them. And, maybe in the end, they will even do it better than you. And that should be absolutely fine with you as a leader. And I mean, it's offloading as well on the workload that you have on you. Mm-hmm. But I speak a lot about natural strengths, right? And how we are different in areas. And when we start to delegate to people, and it's outside of their strength zone. So if I keep delegating something to you that, okay, maybe you know a bit on how to handle it, you belong to the team and it's not completely strange to you, but still it's something that frustrates you. It's something that easily makes you feel stuck. You never find the flow in it. Then I should not continue to delegate that type of task to you. So that is really on how not to delegate. I mean, really try to see who can do this task very well, who can grow into it. And maybe there are certain tasks that will never make somebody shine and flourish in that position. So I think we really need to adapt as well when we are delegating, and not insist on that somebody just should be able to do something. They just should be able to swallow what you are delegating to them. So what do you say, Alison? I mean, in terms of what are the red flags in delegation? What should you not do?
Yes, how not to delegate. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first word that springs to mind is dumping. So as you were saying, it's just the boring stuff that you just want to get off your plate. You just go, do that. Just do that. I had a manager once who, he employed me, and then he delegated everything to me and then said, bye-bye. And in 6 months' time at a conference, we saw each other and he introduced himself to me. And it's like, that's dumping. That's extreme delegation. So let's not do that. But, I mean, delegation should be thoughtful. It should, as you were saying, as much as possible, try to play to people's strengths, what empowers them, and also where they're at in their career as well. So, if somebody's brand new, they might be very enthusiastic, but, they'll be, with their delegation, they'll need much more direction than maybe other people. And that's okay. You can still delegate them things, but don't overwhelm them too much. And then you've got the disillusioned person who's been there maybe for 6 months or a little bit longer, and they kind of know what's going on. And, they're sort of starting to realize now what they don't know. And all of the work is starting to come in and they're panicking a little bit. So, that's when they really need some support and not be overwhelmed by any sort of dumping delegation. And then you've got the people after a while, they're cautiously capable. And so, you're more facilitating people at this stage. So you can feel a little bit more free perhaps to delegate to these people if they're sort of at that stage where they can start to feel empowered and take on some challenges and saying, I've got this, I know how to do my job and stretch myself. That's where sort of empowerment starts to come through the system. And then delegating for people who are, the overachievers and they want that promotion, if you can support them by delegating them really cool things, as a leader, that's really empowering for you to do. So they can take responsibility as something really cool, really interesting, to let their light shine, and you get the reflection off that. So don't worry about that. That sort of thoughtful leadership and thoughtful delegation will help to keep people motivated and interested. So I think that's kind of a good way that people can look at delegation in a slightly different light.
Yeah. What do you say, Tasneem? How do you not? What are the red flags? What should you not do in delegation?
So when you were talking, Sophia, about strengths, it's interesting. Something came up, and I was thinking back to my team and my old team as well. And you're absolutely right. I think that by default, us as leaders, two things can happen when we're delegating. A, that we trust somebody so much that we can overburden them sometimes. And as a leader, what we have to always be very conscious of is that we're not over-relying and over-delegating to somebody, because that person will make our lives easier. So that's one thing. And they tend to be high performers, so they're not going to say no. So I think in terms of not to delegate, do keep in mind in terms of who is it serving best. And I think another one is the strengths bit. See, not everyone has very large teams. So you might only have, say, 1 or 2 direct reports or somebody in your team. And I think it becomes tricky when you only rely on strengths, because if you only have 1 or 2 key people, then they have to take the share, whether it plays to their strengths or not. So the way you would probably delegate is upskill them on certain aspects so they can, really support you in executing what needs to be done. If you have a large team, then I think absolutely play to the strengths and see what tasks people can take on or responsibilities so they can continue to shine as well. And we all know, right, that if people play to their strengths, then it is much easier for them to come up and do their best and shine as well. And look, if your team shines, you shine. It's just as simple as that, right? I mean, I don't think that there's any thriving team out there who doesn't have a really good leader behind it. And I think it's the leader's boss to ensure that they are aware of that too. And I think, it's all in a package. So yeah, I think that what not to do, definitely, I think for me, a big one is don't over rely on your high performer. Yeah.
In investment banking, I saw that a lot. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I like what you say about upskilling. So it's not always, sometimes we just have to do it, right? Even if it's not in our strength zone. But it can still be as much as possible, but then sometimes we just need to have those skills and tools to just get it done.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Well, I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. I certainly hope that all our viewers, you enjoyed and you took something away from it in terms of what to delegate, how not to delegate. As always, if you have any specific topics, any questions regarding something that we've covered, please do send it along to either of us and we'll pick it up. And if there are any specific topics that you would like more information on or our views, please do get in touch on LinkedIn with any of us. Until next week, see you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.